Today we are canning black beans. These are probably about 2 pounds of black beans that have been soaking for about 12 to maybe 14 hours. You want to do 12 to 18 hours. So I've been soaking them overnight, and now the next thing to do is drain them off and rinse them. Okay, so now we're going to drain the beans they've been soaking overnight. You see some of the starch. And we're going to give them a nice rinse off real quick. So now we're going to add them to our pot. When you're canning beans, you have to cook them at least for about 30 minutes. So I'm going to cover this with water. Make sure you have plenty of water, because this is the water you can use for the stock for your canning, or you can use chicken or beef stock as well. We're going to put the beans in our pot now. It's completely covered with water on high. We're going to put a lid on it. Then once our pot has come to a boil, we're going to put a timer on for 30 minutes. Okay, so my beans are boiled for 30 minutes. I've also heated up my chicken stock that I'm going to use in my beans. And I've also got my lids already started to just a gentle boil to get them sterilized. And since I'm not going to use this, the juice that the beans are in right now, I'm going to drain this. But you certainly can use the juice instead of the chicken stock. Okay, so now we have our pressure canner out, and beans have to be are a low acid food, so they have to be pressure can. They can never be a water bath can. Here I have 3 quarts of water that I'm going to put in my canner. And if you have hard well water like I do, and if you're not sure, it's not going to hurt to do it, you can just put a couple of tablespoons of white vinegar in there, and that'll keep that white milky residue off of your jars once they're done. So we're going to move this over to the heat, and then we're going to fill our jars. Okay, so now we're going to fill our jars up, and on the pints and the quarts, you want to leave at least 1 inch of head space on it, so we get them all filled up. And then I'm filling mine with chicken stock. Like I said, you can use the broth that it cooked in if you want. And that's my 1 inch headspace. And then I'll finish filling the rest of them up. Okay, so now we have all of our jars filled up. The 2 pounds for me made about 7 pints. And the next thing you want to do is you want to release all the air bubbles. Now, if you haven't been canning for a long time, or you have a shaky hand, then you probably don't want to use a metal butter knife in a glass jar. I've done this forever. You probably would want, especially if you're starting out, just use a rubber spatula. And what you want to do is go all around the jar and pull in a little bit. And what you're doing is you're releasing any trapped air bubbles that are in that. Once you do that, you take a clean cloth and you wipe the rim. Take your handy dandy magnetic stick and you put in a a sterile ring and lid, and you just finger tighten it. And now, okay, so now we have all of our jars. Lids, the rims wiped. We have the lids and the rings on, so we're going to start loading it into the canner. You always want to make sure your canner has hot water when you're loading in a hot thing. You don't want to put a hot jar into a canner with cold water. And always make sure the bottom of your canner has your little vented tray there, because the jars cannot sit on the very bottom. So now we're full, and I'm just going to put the lid on. You want to measure up the V with the other V. Takes a little. There you go. and you'll hear it locking as we put it on. Now we're going to wait, and what we're waiting to see is steam steadily rising, not in spurts, but steadily rising from here for 10 minutes before we put the weight on. Okay, it's probably hard to see on the video, but we do have a full steam coming out of the top. So now we're going to put our weight on there, and this is 10 pounds of weight, so we're going to just put it right on top. And then we're going to wait for this to rock back and forth. Once it starts rocking back and forth, we're going to adjust down the heat a little bit so that it's a gentle motion. And once it starts rocking back and forth, then we're going to put our timer on for 75 minutes. Okay, so it's rocking back and forth now. And I'm just going to start adjusting down the temperature so that it's not too hot, but keeps on rocking. And then I'm going to set my timer for 75 minutes. And that's it. Okay, so our timer is just about up. So all we're going to do is we're going to turn the heat off, and then we're going to let this rest. You should probably pick it up off the burner, but we don't want to mess with it just yet. So for now, I'm just going to turn the burner off and let it rest. Okay, so it stopped boiling, so I'm going to go ahead and take the weight off. You want to make sure that it's been sitting for a good long while before you do this. Now it'll exhaust the rest of the steam, and it'll be all done. Okay, so now the canner has cooled down, and it's safe. And you'll notice that there's no more steam coming out here, and this is collapsed. So it's safe to open up the canner. So we twist it, and then we open it up. And we use our jar lifter. Bring them out. You'll notice that all of them, the seals have sealed on them. They are still bubbling. That's going to be normal. You want to let them sit out for about 24 hours out here on the counter, and then you can take the rings off of them and store them with just their lids on. And that's how you can black beans.